Oh, my dad was a huge sports fan, Cubs, Bears, Bulls, anything Chicago. So I think I can remember a picture of me at maybe 2 years old swinging a wiffle ball bat. And I can remember he put in the garage, we had a basket. So it was maybe, 5 or 6 feet high. But that's where I learned how to shoot and layups and things like that. So, and then, I just went from there.
Did your dad play sports too?
Yeah, he played at South Bend, Washington Clay for 2 years, and then they moved to Elkhart, so he played for Elkhart High School, basketball and baseball and track. And in fact, his junior year, they were ranked number 1 in the state in basketball. So, and then he played at Manchester College and played basketball and baseball as well. He was a lot more mild than I was. He was very calm, and I don't know. He just had a very calming sense about him. He never really got upset, not very emotional, and I was. But he was very, they made sure that I behaved myself and didn't always work.
Yeah.
I had my share of technicals. So.
As a player, you were.
Oh, I got technicals as a player too.
Yeah.
Went to Concord High School, played basketball and baseball, then went to Manchester College and played basketball there. Well, the years I was going through high school, our conference was the NLC, and that's when Scott Skiles is my grade. Mm-hmm. So, it was a very, very good conference. Northwood was really good that year. Their top player went and played at the Air Force Academy, and Rochester was in our conference back then. Actually, Bremen was in our conference as well back in the 80s. So it was tough. The Elkhart schools were good. Elkhart Memorial was very good that year as well. My senior year, it was packed. It was a tough year. We went, I think, 11-10, lost in the sectionals in overtime by 1 in the semifinals.
To who?
Northridge.
Yes. Oh man.
Kid hit a 1-and-1 with 4 seconds left. We had a shot at sectionals. Memorial was the team to beat, and they ended up winning. We had played them in the regular season and lost by, I think, 3 at Northside Gym. So, it would have been tough, and they ended up losing to Plymouth in the regionals anyway. So, yeah, junior and senior year, he lit us up both years. I like to say we held him to 35 his senior year, because he had 53 against his junior year. Well, he would pull up, this is before the three-point line too, so he would pull up, probably 30, 32, maybe 35 feet and just let it fly, and he would hit everything. If he'd had the three-point shot, think how many more points he would have scored in his career, because his range was unlimited. Plus he could distribute the ball, and they were good. Obviously, they won the state that year, so.
Yeah.
But, he was the catalyst, no question. Oh, yeah. He, to get to where he was going to play in college and in the professional leagues, you got to have a chip on your shoulder, and he certainly did. And, of course, back then we didn't particularly care for him, and I'm sure they didn't care for us either. We've never, no love lost with Plymouth. So, but, he backed it up. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
He could talk because he could back it up. Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, Nick, back then, I shouldn't say unfortunately now, you don't see the crowds at high school basketball games. And I'm sure Jenny could tell you, it's the same at Northwood, that, every Friday and Saturday night it was packed. And the kids, a lot of student cheer blocks and, pep bands. And I know a lot of schools still do that, but you just don't get the gym full like we used to. Now they were down a little bit, but
yeah.
Still, and Triton's always had a very good following.
Yeah,
win or lose.
So.
Manchester College.
And you played
basketball there.
Yeah. Who was your coach at Manchester?
Terry Haviland. Yeah. We weren't very good. In fact, we were terrible. But
really,
oh yeah, terrible. We were 2-27 my senior year.
Oh man,
yeah, it was rough.
I
think that helped me though in the long run, coaching wise.
Yeah.
To have to go through something like that. Didn't really ever want to do that again, and I think that motivated me I didn't know how it would at that point, but as I look back, I think that was certainly a factor. You can imagine if you were 2-27, it's hard to get motivated to go to practice. But I think overall, everybody showed up every day. We worked pretty hard. Mm-hmm. We just weren't. We weren't big. I played post sometimes at 6'1". So if that tells you anything, we're going up against teams that had guys that were 6'8", 6'9", and it was tough. One of and he was actually my driver's ed teacher as well, Glenn Swanson, who went on to be the head coach at Fairfield. He did a great job with us. This was high school basketball, and he was also our baseball coach for a couple of years. But he was very stern, very expected us to work hard, and I think a lot of what he did, really made an impact as I got going into further down the line in sports. Social studies, social studies education.
Yeah. So what was your first job out of college then?
Went to Northwood for 1 year for a guy on sabbatical, and taught government, econ, social studies classes. I was the 7th grade boys coach at the middle school, and then I was an assistant I guess I was the head JV baseball coach that first year. Then the guy came back and I couldn't find a teaching job, so I subbed for a year, was substitute teacher, was the varsity assistant boys coach at Northwood that year, and then varsity assistant baseball coach that year. Middle school was different, obviously. When I student taught at Warsaw, so I was a freshman assistant when Coach Rhodes was there. Rick Fox was actually on the team that year as well, the high school team, the varsity team. But we did. I don't know. I don't think it was anything I wasn't expecting. Mm-hmm. As middle school kids aren't. That's an important grade to start teaching them the fundamentals or continue what they've learned at a younger age. And we did okay. It was fun. I had a good time doing it. Now, my next year when I was the varsity assistant, I think we finished 2-19. So, I went from a horrible year, my last year in college, and then second year I'm helping to coach, another really bad season. Just didn't have as much talent as everybody else, and that happens. So, I think those things helped me again on down the road. Well, I applied everywhere, including Triton, and I was working a basketball camp, and the principal, Alice Neal, at the time, called and talked to my wife, Jenny, and basically interviewed her for me, and Jenny, what Alice say? She said, can he coach girls volleyball and girls basketball? And Jenny said, well, he'll coach anything you want him to if you give him a job. And so they hired me, so I got to thank Jenny for getting me hired at Triton. I would have been 24, I think, when I started there.
Yeah. So not really, all that much older than some of the students.
Right. Right. And I did JV girls volleyball with Coach Perry, and I was the JV girls basketball coach for 1 year under Bob King. Mr. King resigned the girls' job after that, my first year there. And so I said, of course I never would have imagined coaching girls. I'm sure a lot of guys that are girls coaches probably would say the same thing. You don't go in thinking you're going to coach girls, but no offense to the ladies. But, so I said I would do it. There was no interview process. I just said, hey, I'll do it. If he's not going to do it, I'll do it. And they said, fine, it's yours. So that was probably the easiest head coaching job I've ever had, that's for sure.
So what was that first year like there?
Very good. I came into a very good situation. Our JV team, which was pretty much freshmen, we were what were we? Probably 14-2 or something like that. And that's with our best player, Justina Reichert, now Faulkner, playing varsity. And so her class was a very good class, that Justina's grade. And plus I had Sharon Patterson, who's in the Triton Hall of Fame, She was like 6'1". Katrina Klotz was probably 6 foot. I had height, I had speed, and we had a really, really good team. Finished 17-3. We won our first game and then lost to, probably Warsaw or Columbia City. This was before class, so. Well, I know that people are torn, and of course I grew up in an era where we didn't have it either. Not that it would have mattered because I went to a big school anyway, but I guess I look at it like it gives more kids the opportunity to play it at another level, play further into the tournament. And I know everybody likes to talk about Milan and things like that, and that was great, that was unbelievable, but I think, they didn't really see a really big school that year until semi-state, because back in the 50s there were 800 and some high schools. And after consolidation, then it became harder for the smaller schools to really compete with the bigger schools. And so, the success that the girls and boys could have, which we've had obviously at Triton, has been fantastic. So yeah, I guess I would definitely be a proponent for class. Well, I think we got to the championship game in sectionals maybe once or twice. The year after my first year, my second year, we finished 18-3, got to the championship, and then lost probably by 10 or 12 to, it's either Warsaw or Columbia City, now I can't even remember, but and so we had a lot of success going through those years before it became class basketball. Your wife's class was extremely good as well. When did she graduate?
98.
So we won sectionals her senior year.
She likes to take
They were the first ones, so they were the ones that laid the table.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
So it started off very rough. 1-10. I was frustrated. I'm sure life at home wasn't very pleasant for my wife and girls, but I can remember one night, Coach Perry stopped by, and she and Jenny and I sat in the living room, and we were, trying to figure out, what can we do here? And it was Jenny and Perry that said, you know what, why don't you just start playing all the sophomores? This season's we're not going to probably do anything, which is a bad attitude, I know, but we weren't going anywhere, and we were sinking fast, and they were putting forth more effort, and I said, you know what do we got to lose? We got 2 more years with them after this, let's throw them in there. And after that, we finished maybe the last 13 games, we won 8. So we finished 8-5, won the sectional, should have won the regional, got beat. Some girl punched the ball in at the buzzer. And
sound a little bitter about that.
Well, we lost by 2, and that was the game-winning bucket. We were thinking it was going to go overtime, and it was a heartbreaker. But I think it motivated the girls for the following year. Then, I got to give credit to Jenny and Coach Perry for helping, pushing me in the right direction. Making that switch, and obviously it paid off big time for the next 2 years, and that year too.
Yeah.
Well, they would have been freshmen then Chris's senior year. I would not have thought that we were, as the season began, everybody's goal is to go to the state championship, but at the same time you got to be realistic. And I would have never thought that that's what our final destination was going to be. And we struggled 500 maybe through the first 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, 10 games.
Really?
We weren't, it wasn't like we were lighting people up. So I remember the Bremen game right before Christmas break that year. We went over there, played terrible, should have won, didn't win. It was a conference game. And it was after that, then, I don't know, I can't remember if we had a meeting or if I was angry or whatever, but we did play better after Christmas break. When we got into January, then we started to hit our stride a little bit and got things rolling as we got towards the end of the month in the tournament. Well, and Brandy Ganshorn had hurt her knee in volleyball, so she was out the first, I don't know, 3 or 4 games maybe, which is probably why I brought Ashley up in the first place, because I rarely had freshmen play varsity basketball. I think Amber Feldman had played a little bit the year before, but usually I wanted them to go through a year of JV with Coach Perry, but with Brandy hurt, and obviously Ashley was extremely talented. Brought her up, and so I think it just took a little bit of a while for us to mesh. Missy Naifong, which isn't her name anymore, it's Branham. Is that right, Jenny? What's her? Something like that. Mm-hmm. Her husband's the athletic trainer at Warsaw.
Yeah.
She was our only senior, and then we had all the juniors that had gotten their feet wet the year before, and then Amber Feldman was our sophomore and Ashley was a freshman. So, we had, some really young and one old, and it took a while apparently for them to get things rolling. But we did, obviously. It wasn't a very big class to begin with. I don't think, it wasn't a very talented class, and I think they weeded, it's not like we had to cut, they just didn't go out, or they weeded themselves out eventually, and, just left with Missy was our only one. Not at all. She was a great leader. Really took the girls under her wing, and she was the one. I can remember during that year, she came up at one point and said, "You know what? We need to run more. We need to condition more." And I said, "Okay, no problem." So that's the kind of leader she was. Being able to come and actually tell the coach they want to run more, and that was something I think as we got deeper into the tournament, I ran them, but we were in very, very good shape. That's just how we played. We were all out, full court press. Our first option was get the ball out and run and try to get a layup. And if we don't have that, then set it up. But like a 30-second clock would have never mattered to us. That's for sure. And we did. We had a lot of. The junior class was huge. We had 8 girls in the junior class, 3 of which started. And then many of them were the first ones off the bench as well. So, we could go 8 or 9 deep and not really see a lot of fall off. A little bit. You're always going to have a little bit. But, they were never complained. Great bench supporters, during the games. And, it was a really cohesive group, I guess. I don't mean any disrespect, but I've been coaching girls now for 30 years, and one of the hardest things about coaching girls is they will have a tendency, they are emotional, they'll bring a lot of their problems onto the floor with them, where I feel like guys, they get on the floor, they don't worry about anything else, they just go out and play, and sometimes, if one's mad at another because of a boyfriend issue or something like that, you never know what's going on, and I think these girls decided that we can't have that petty stuff going on. And it's nothing, I don't think it's anything I ever said to them, but it just was that one of those special groups that had come up all the way, that junior class, that first year, that had been playing basketball together for so long that I think they knew before I knew that they had a chance to do something pretty special. That year, no. The next year we had, after we had lost 3 in a row in 2001 season, things started to get a little tense, because they always do when you start losing, So we had a little team meeting that year and got things resolved, and then went on another big roll again. So, but Coach Perry was also very good at finding out things, seeing the things, because she was around them down in the gym more than during the day with PE and stuff like that too, so she could get a heads up sometimes of what was going on, and we had very, very few problems. And it worked great for 14 straight years. Yeah, she had a lot to do with our success. Absolutely no question about it. So she would give me her advice. I either took it, didn't take it. we rarely, there was maybe a few times where we'd bark at each other, and then when the game was over, it was over. So her experience as a head coach in volleyball obviously lended itself to me when I took over, because once I became the head coach after that 1 year, she said, I asked her to be the JV basketball coach because I was her JV volleyball coach, and that also helped too, because especially at Triton, a small school, most of the girls that played volleyball played basketball. And so, one, they were already used to her in volleyball. So I think it really paid a lot of dividends for us, in those 14 years. Well, I expected us to win sectional. We were definitely the favorite. We had beaten every team that was in the sectional easily. Although I want to say the OD game during the regular season was a little closer than what the championship game was that year. But yeah, we were starting to really gel. I can remember the very first game of sectional, we got out to a huge lead against Argus. I think we had 18-0 lead at the end of the first quarter, and we were up 31-4 at the end of the second quarter. So the game was probably over. But we came out after halftime, and Argus scored the first 4 points, like within the first minute. And so I was ticked off, and I called a timeout, and so what? It's 31-8. We're still up 23, but I ripped them pretty good about. We gave up 4 points in 16 minutes. You turn around and give up 4 points, in 1 minute. That's not the way we're going to play. If you guys want to do anything, we're going to have to play hard no matter what the score is all the way through. And then, so they took that message to heart, and we ended up winning, Oregon Davis and us, and it was, the first half was tight. I think we were maybe up 1 at the end of the first half. And OD, and OD is, Coach Minix has had unbelievable success there as well, and I'm sure he could speak to coaching at a small school just as well. But the third quarter, we must have made some adjustments at half and started to hit some shots, which always helps. And I think we outscored them in the third quarter by 15 or so, and so we go into the fourth quarter with a comfortable lead and held on from there. So. Usually talk to Perry before we go in, decide, is there anything we need to change, go back in, talk about what we did well, addressed what we did poorly, tried to finish up with something positive before we went back out, and then, made the adjustments that we wanted to make. And, the nice thing about most of the girls' teams that I've been associated with, the girls are pretty smart. They're not only talented, but they understand the game. You tell them to do something, they do it, and that's also obviously what makes a team very successful as well. The fiery speech in that first game was after halftime, but that was during the game. But I don't know if I rarely went in and went ballistic. Probably in my years, there was a few times that I did, but not so much during the tournament. Because what purpose is that going to serve? When I got angry or rose my voice or a little bit, they knew, because I rarely did that in practice or in games. So I think they knew when something wasn't pleasing me, and they usually responded. And Missy, again, in that 2000 year was very instrumental in, pulling the girls aside and saying stuff to them and getting them on the same page as well. So she was a great asset to that season. Well, we were ready to play. There was the same team we had played the year before and lost on that tip-in.
That's Couts, right?
Couts, yeah. And we were at home. In fact, we got to play at home until the state championship game, which was great. Yeah. And, we came out motivated. The girls were in no way intimidated by the fact, because they had most of their team back too, just like we had most of our team back. And we played a great game. I don't think it would have mattered if we were on the road or not. They were ready to go from the tip. Just sit back and then watch them dismantle them, and we ended up winning the regional by 30. Oh yeah, on their minds for sure. When they knew that's who they got to play, they were they were cheering for them to win their sectional so that we would have a chance to redeem ourselves from the year before. So and they did a pretty good job. So semi-state's at home, and we're going to play the defending state champion in the first game, Clinton Prairie, who had won, I think the year before they had won in Class A volleyball and basketball. Had lost a few kids, but they were still very good. And one of the funny parts of that day is the Clinton Prairie, because it's kind of drive up for them. So most, or many, I don't want to say most, but many of their fans just assumed that they would be in the championship game that night, and didn't really bring much of a crowd. And so I think we stunned them a little bit, and I wasn't sure either. I mean, that was by far going to be the game that if we were going to do anything, we had to beat them. And it was a close game throughout, but ended up winning, I think, by 6, maybe 59-53, something like that. I remember that Missy played very well. Betsy Sellier played well. Ashley twisted her ankle at some point during that game. I mean, she got it wrapped and came back in and was able to play and did okay. But somehow, we were able to survive that with her not at 100% and against a very quality opponent. So, I mean, having gotten through that game, I think the girls then really believed, hey, we can go to state. Got to win one more game. I don't know if we were at that point, maybe 11th. If they didn't, we weren't in the top 10. I know that. Yeah, I think they sensed, here we're at home. We just beat the defending champs. We're playing really well. We have a really good shot at winning that next game.
I bet the crowds were probably.
I want to say, especially for the championship game, the whole one side of the gym was filled with Triton people. Yeah, it was unbelievable. And probably what helped us, although as well as we played, I don't think it really would have mattered, but their best player had been nursing a bad hamstring through the last, little bit of the season, and their game in the first game was also tough and close, and she had to play a lot of minutes, and she just wasn't at 100%. And I want to say early second quarter, they had to take her out. She just couldn't do anything, and at that point we jumped on them and ended up. I think we won that game by 26, maybe. It was it's just surreal. We hadn't had to go anywhere. We hadn't been on the road through any part of the tournament yet. And so, now they're thinking, geez, we get to go to...
Okay. So, we were talking about after the semi-state championship game.
It was, it just hadn't really sunk in that we were going to go play for a state championship game. I mean, I never had that kind of success as a player, so that part was really fulfilling for me, is at least I can... a team that I'm associated with has an opportunity to do something pretty great. Yeah, Monday mornings you go down and Mike, Byron, and Ted Chittum and I went down and they went over stuff, picked up tickets and things like that and everything else that you have to do. And so, I mean, it was a little intimidating, because I'd never been in that situation before, obviously. And probably some of the other coaches hadn't either, but that was kind of fun, just to know that, hey, we've reached what we wanted to reach, and at least for our class, we've reached our pinnacle, or we have one more game and a chance to really do something fun. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they, Fox 28, Dean Huppert did I want to say he probably did some kind of story almost every night, talked to all the girls, interviewed the starters, and had Sorrel Fetters. I know she's married now too, and I can't remember what her maiden name is either, or what her married name is, but she made up a song and for Fox 28, and so they played that. It was pretty exciting. Those are the kinds of things you kind of worry about though too, because we still had a game to play, and everybody was talking about it, and the media was involved, and just you want to make sure you keep them grounded at the same time and not let that get to our head, because we knew we were playing a really good team. Oh yeah, and a team that had been to had gotten beat in the semi-state final the year before, and so they had brought a lot of their girls back too. They had a pair of twins that were extremely talented. So I was a little worried about everything, the outside stuff, and I didn't want it to mess up what we were getting ready to do either. Went down Friday, practiced at it was at Hinkle Fieldhouse, because the Conseco, or whatever that's called now, Bankers Life, was the women's Big Ten tourney was there that weekend. So which is fine. Hinkle was a great place to play.
I like it better.
Yeah, it was great. And practiced, spent the night, got up in the morning, and we practiced somewhere. I can't remember where we practiced in the morning, but we did something
Oh, you
quick.
practiced before the game?
I would shoot around a little bit.
Yeah.
And then went to the gym, got ready to play. Fitful, I guess. You got so many things running through your head, scenarios, that it's hard to get a good night's sleep. But at the same time, you wake up the next morning and you're ready to go. A little bit. I didn't stay up all night, but
yeah.
Not really, because a lot of times we have practice in the mornings anyway. So, and that was at 8 o'clock if we ever did, maybe 10 at the latest. So, no, I don't think the early start was a factor for anybody. If you're not ready to go, then you shouldn't be there in the first place. So,
now, did you go up and measure the hoop?
You know what, we did actually, because I remember they did that.
Yeah, tell me that story then. Yeah.
We did that Friday night when we went to practice, and reminded them of the Hoosiers movie, and put the tape measure up there. Hey, it's 10 foot just like anything else. I was really superstitious, so I did everything, wore the same clothes the whole tournament. And
oh, you did?
Oh, yeah. Why change, man?
Yeah.
You know what? Pre-game speech wasn't anything different than what we normally did. I put everything up on the board that I would have put, whether it was our, first game or last game. Talked about who was going to guard who. Here's what we expect. We're going to do what we've been doing well all season. And, I didn't want to make it too big and get them too thinking about it or nervous. It's a big game, but it's just a game we got to go out and we got to execute. And if we don't, things aren't going to go the way we want. If we execute the way we're capable of, we should have a good game. Let chips fall where they may. I was nervous, obviously. I tried not to let the girls see. I'm sure they were too. How can you not be, in that situation? So, it was cool, because we had a great following. I can just picture all the people in that side of the, behind our bench. So it was really exciting. They were relaxed. I think they probably less nervous than me. At least it seemed like it. They were a very loose group, always had been, which is a benefit, I think. You don't want people too wound up. And they were ready to go. They were excited to play, ready to play. I think they saw what was possibly in front of them, and I think we played a really good game for 2.5 quarters. Yeah, we did. We came out and I think we led at the end of the first. We were ahead at halftime. Third period, we had gotten up 11 and had the ball 4 times with a chance to extend that lead, and didn't. And we started to turn the ball over a little bit, and they had gotten it back down. But we still, with 4 minutes to go in the game, we were still up 8. You know what, obviously we knew they were the two. Rachel was probably our best defender, so she guarded one of them. The other one was more of an inside player. I think Missy had to guard her. And I put Missy because Missy was smart enough not to foul. And just played our normal. We were almost always man-to-man. Sometimes we play a little or throw a little zone in there occasionally, but we were typically man-to-man. And so, obviously if they got open or drove, we were going to double team. And force somebody else to, force them to pass the ball if at all possible. Because, they probably, I bet those two combined averaged 70% of their points, 70% of their rebounds. I mean, those two were the reason they were there. There's no question about it. Because, the rest of their team, and they only played like 7 girls in the game. And the 2 that came off the bench saw very, very limited time. So, I mean, it was going to be their top 5, and that was it. So, obviously, we were going to we knew that, try to keep the game as up-tempo as possible to try to wear them down. And it didn't work very well for the Brock girls. They were good. Not really, because, Missy was almost 6 foot. Betsy was about 6 foot. Our other girls were long. I thought they would be fine. And we had been a really good rebounding team anyway throughout the year. I think we averaged like 39 rebounds a game.
Yeah.
So, that was a point of emphasis for us. Because if we rebounded, we could fast break.
Yeah.
So we worked hard on that. Everything was working very well through most of the first half. I must have, at some point, because there's that picture of me talking to her. And she was, she was young. She's young for her age to begin with. I think she was still 14, years old when we were playing that game. And so, now she had played a lot of basketball in her life. And sometimes she just, got a little bit too thinking about it. And so, one of the things we had to keep track with her was, don't let her get too emotional or too out of control. And usually a word from Perry or I was enough to get her refocused and going back in there. But, it was an aggressive game. So, fouls were going to happen. That our style was aggressive anyway. But, I think for the most part, as we got through most of the game, we did what we should have been doing and did it pretty well. Well, I think we were up like 3 at the end of the first period, and then maybe up 6 or 7, I think, at half. Because I know we extended it after the break just a little bit. At that point, I'd say, hey, we're doing great. If we continue to play, take care of the ball, hit the boards like we have been, yes, the Brock girls are going to score some points, but, so what? If we can hold everybody else down, those 2 alone, I didn't feel could beat us, because we had multiple people that could score. And, I think we came out after halftime feeling really, really good about where we were and maybe, getting into the second half and putting this thing away. Because all of our other tournament games we had won easily, by more than 15. So I think they expected to go out and do that.
And we
did.
To.
Yeah,
right?
We jumped out and got up 11. And they switched their defense. We didn't adjust very well. We had a tendency to turn the ball over a lot anyway because we were an up-tempo team. But we made some bad turnovers. They were getting some layups. And, the lead started to dwindle. And then you start to tighten up a little bit. So I think we, at that point, took a couple timeouts, tried to get things righted, changed our approach or what they were trying to trap at half court, and we had to do some things a little bit differently. And then it seemed like we got that back under control again. But I think that if we'd have gotten up 13 or 15 maybe, I think we could have sailed the rest of the way. Of course, it would have taken away the dramatic ending, but I would have taken that. I would have taken getting up 20. It was a trapping half-court defense. And with the Brock girls out front, very tall, very athletic, we, made some really bad passes. Trying to throw it through them instead of bounce passing or getting somebody in the middle. And they ran it very well. They threw it at us at the right time for them, which they probably needed to. And, once we got it under control, of course, they had gotten the lead back down where now they probably felt like they had a chance. And then it was just a battle in the fourth period. Not bad, we were still up. And like I said, we had gotten it back up to 8 with about 4 minutes to go. So, it's still a long time, but I felt like, hey, we're in a really good position here. And then we stopped, we couldn't hit anything, a couple more turnovers. Now all of a sudden it's a 1-possession game. And, you know, I mean, you've watched enough sports in your life, anything can happen. And, you know, unfortunately it got down to where it was tied, and they had the last shot at the end of regulation. You know, and that's, of course, they're the ones that we didn't want to let them beat us. And now it looks like, you know, we let that big lead go, and now we're letting that 8-point lead with half a quarter to go. It's gone away, and I mean, it was disappointing, obviously. Oh, probably, yeah, no question. Yeah, I mean, this was new for everybody, and we let up a little bit too much and let them back in it. Well, you know, here we are. Our game that we had lost the year before came down to a last-second shot. Granted, we were a little further into the tournament, but you're thinking, oh no, now here we go again. And kind of a sense of relief. At least we got it into overtime. You know, at least we have another chance now, and we didn't lose in the last second like we had the year before. So that, you know, regrouped, and we, you know, until the last little bit of that overtime, we played okay. We missed a couple shots we probably should have hit. But, I mean, again, it was, the overtime was very similar, except for maybe the last minute and a half was very similar to the end of the last 3 minutes of the game, the regulation. Just tight back and forth, kind of feeling each other out. You know, they sensed they had survived, you know, where we could have put them away, and we didn't. And maybe thought they had a new life, second life, and, you know, they came out and played really well. Missy on the free throw line was looking over, like, what should we do? And I just said, you guys, you know, you're going to have to hit some threes. We have to shoot threes. And that's all I did. And so she listened, like a good player will do. She and Ashley, probably our best 2-3. Of course, Ashley had fouled out. Rachel Spiker had fouled out.
Yeah.
Who else? We lost 3 starters.
Ashley, Brandy, and
Rachel.
Yeah.
They all fouled out, We lost 2 of them in overtime,
Yeah.
near the last minute and a half.
I just want to set the dramatic, because you lost 3 starters in overtime.
I know Brandy fouled out on the play where they went up, hit 2 free throws and went up 6. Well, I mean, in a way,
because they were just going to hold on. To
oh, absolutely. At that point, they were up 4.
Yeah.
With 1:05 to go. Yeah, I mean, at that point in the game, we would have been fouling to stop the clock anyway, and force them to hit their free throws. I would rather they wouldn't have fouled one of the Brock girls, but she's the one that stole the ball, so.
Yeah.
All I knew is it went in, we got to call timeout, you know, but it didn't look good when, you know, from the angle, because she shot it on our side of the bench. And if, you know, you watch that replay, it hit really high off the backboard. It's not like it hit the square. I don't know, it just had enough of a arc on it that it banked in perfectly. Well, we're you know, down 3, so we're going to have to, got to get the ball back. We're going to foul right away. I told them who to foul, and they passed it into that girl. And I'm going to throw Amber under the bus, but Amber was supposed to foul her and didn't right away. And then they passed it over to, I think, Jessica Brock, or one of the Brock girls. And I can remember watching the video. I like stomped and turned around, and then fortunately they passed it back to the girl that I wanted us to foul in the first place. And then Amber fouled her the second time. I remember calling her over and kind of chewing her out. So they, you know, she should have never given up the ball. Now, there's no guarantee she was going to hit her free throws either, but she was a much better free throw shooter than the girl that went to the line, which is why I wanted them to foul her in the first place.
So she goes down.
Short on the first one. And honestly, as I reflect, if she hits one of those 2, we probably don't win. I mean, you know, we don't know, because there was still 40-some seconds left. But, you know, I just feel like if they could have kept it that 2-possession game, obviously we never get back into it. But then she was long on the second one and got the rebound, and almost an identical spot from Amber Feldman to Missy, and this one looked good when she let it go. And, you know, and it was, as the only senior, and I know she felt like she was the leader, and we're going to make it or break it with me shooting it. And I think at the same time, like I said, we were a good rebounding team. So I'm going to let it go, and if we miss, maybe we'll get the rebound, So, but she didn't miss. It's just unbelievable, And then we called timeout again. Probably didn't need to, but I feel like you figured you already lost, And honestly, in my head, when they went up 6, I was thinking, well, I guess second place isn't terrible. Because you don't expect somebody to come down like that, and everything fell into place. Bank in a 3, the girl misses 2 free throws, hit another 3, and now we have another chance. So we came out, and if you've watched it, we pressed still, because we didn't want to change anything, we don't want to play hesitant. And, I thought the Brock girl forced up a shot. Banged it off the backboard hard. Now she had gotten into the lane, but that shot was a hard shot. On the run, she shot it too hard, got it right back because she shot it. I don't think it hit any rim, it just hit backboard. And then Betsy blocked her next attempt, got the rebound, got it off to, I want to say maybe Missy got it, and then she gave it to Amber. And I think if you watch, you can see Missy kind of telling Amber, hey, slow it down. Now we've got the ball, we're in control. We can take the last shot. So I think we came down and called a timeout with like 15 seconds to go. Mm-hmm. Well, we were going to try to get it inside to Betsy or have Missy take another shot if she was open. Got it in, and I think we got it down to Amber in the corner, who ball faked, and if she would have jumped it, because it got the girl off her feet. And if she'd have jumped into her, she'd have been shooting free throws. But she didn't. She tried to bounce pass it into Betsy, and it was low, or maybe it got tipped, and it went right between her legs. And Janelle Salisbury was on the other side, or the other block, and picked it up and went up, and I think it got blocked and then fumbled around. And it's one of those plays where they would review today during a game, or college game or whatever, because I don't know, maybe the guy just saw something, but you can't tell who it went off of. I just don't think there's any way you could tell who it went off of, but we got the call, so idea was to get
call timeout.
Right, we were going to swing it around and get it back to Missy on the other side. Reversed it to as our number 3 play, because we were going to shoot a 3, which maybe wasn't the brightest idea. Probably should have just pounded it inside, but we only had 4.7 seconds to go, so I thought we could get it in, whip it around. Missy was the inbounds, and then she runs out and gets a screen and shoots a 3. Got it in. Tommy passed it over to Amber, and I don't think Missy was as open as we wanted her to be. And Amber kind of glanced and thought, time's running out, I got to let it go. I knew that, if we miss, we were double overtime. Of course, that wouldn't have, we're short 3 starters, that would have been tough. But, she let it go, and I feel like I thought, I think it's going in, because it looked good when she let it go. And, man, unbelievable. I love watching the end of that game because the cameras are facing our crowd, and you can just see, everybody at once when that shot went in, stood up, and it is pretty special. Yeah. She had, what was she on the year? 2 for 12 from 3-point line coming into that game. She didn't even take a shot that was her only shot of the game. So it wasn't somebody you would expect that was going to pull the dramatics, and plus she was the quietest kid ever. But she saw her chance, and she knew she had to take it. If Missy wasn't open, she was going to have to take it. And she was open. I don't think they really didn't come out and defend her very well. So
probably weren't expecting her.
No, I'm sure they weren't. Yeah. Which is probably they were able to take Missy away, and so Amber.
Put that forward.
She just didn't. She wasn't. That year. Now the next year we counted on her to do a lot more scoring, but that wasn't her role. Her sophomore year, so it's unbelievable. You were there,
So the shot goes in. Pandemonium. What happens for you?
I don't know. It's hard to remember. I'm sure I was jumping around cheering, then realized, hey, I need to be a professional and go over and shake the other coach's hand. And, I don't remember if our girls even ever if we went through the line and shook hands or not. I just don't remember that part of it. It's kind of a blur after the game. I'd like to think, because our girls have always been very, very good and a lot of sportsmanship. I don't know. I mean, I can remember them celebrating, but I just don't know if we ever went over and I'm sure the Rising Sun girls were just stunned. I mean, it's kind of like what happened to us the year before. But we didn't have a 6-point lead, with a minute to go either the year before.
Yeah.
It's hard at that moment to really appreciate it, just because there's so much going on, and then they're wanting you to come over for an interview, and that part I regret, because while I was being interviewed is when they announced Missy had won the Mental Attitude Award, and so I didn't really get to see her get that, which was that was upsetting to me. But I mean, I was doing what I needed. That's what you do. But it's just that it's hard to remember anything. I can remember the game, but it's after the game that you just sort of, wow, so many things happening, so many thoughts in your head, and I was just so happy for the girls. I think we were 7-6 at one point in that season. Struggling to stay above 500. We should have been better than that, but when we got things going and played pretty well the rest of the way out.
Yeah, get there.
I probably, and then the next year though, Plymouth and Triton both went, which was kind of cool.
That is cool.
Let me tell you, when we came home we spent the night, and when we came back on the buses, obviously we came through Tippecanoe first, and then drove through Etna Green, drove through all three, and there were people out on the roadside as we went by, holding up signs, and that was pretty cool. Just every single, all three of them, Tippecanoe and then Etna Green, and then when we got into Bourbon, there was obviously more people because we were having a pep rally. But in each of those communities, almost the whole way, there was somebody standing there holding up something or cheering for them, and that felt really good, And I know that the diehard one-class people was probably, for some, a hard pill to swallow, but I think a lot of them also saw how much excitement it generated too. So it was pretty cool. And I'd like to think that the girls, and Chris was part of getting us started in that in the 98, but, and then, you think about the success that we had in the other sports too after that, The boys had a really good year in 2000. They had another good year in 2001. Boys baseball team won in 2001, I think. Then Jason started taking his teams to state. So, I mean, it really, we had a really good decade there. I think I had told them, if we won, I don't know where the dyeing my hair came in, because we did that too. I think we did that the night after we won. I think, is that right? Yeah. So, and I must have told, because I had never shaved my mustache since college. So it had been a long time, and I'd said, I always had a mustache, and told them if we win, I guess you can dye my hair and shave my mustache. So, and they're right in front of me, and there was a lot of people there. There's probably, 750, 1,000 people in the gym, and I had to get my mustache shaved off. But I think it was Missy and Christy Seacrest, who was the senior manager, that had the honors.
Were they gunning for the mustache all year?
Must have been.
Yeah.
It looked terrible anyway. It needed to go. But that was it was pretty cool. See the gym packed like that and everybody there, and it was special, I think, for the girls too. Being able to bring the hardware home, and it's something they'll never forget. I can sit here and relive it, and it happened almost 20 years ago now. So I'm sure. I think we just saw it was the weekend of the girls' state championship. Amber Feldman, who's working out in Missouri somewhere, running a conference or whatever she's doing, had posted a picture of her 2 state rings. and said something about, can't believe it's been 19 years since we won that first one, and it was pretty cool to look at. So, you know, obviously they're still all thinking about it or remember it and can look back very fondly on it.
Yeah.
Well, obviously for me it's had a huge impact. You know, like I told you at the beginning, I grew up always involved in sports, going and watching my dad. He was a fast pitch softball pitcher for years and years in the Elkhart leagues. And so I just followed him everywhere when he went and played. And so it's always been part of what I've done. I mean, I can remember staying up late and watching Cubs games with my dad. I mean, actually, he'd make me take a nap at night, and then when they were on the West Coast, and then he would get me up at like 10:30 when the Cubs were going to come on so I could watch the game. Not that I slept before that anyway, but, you know, and then I just, you know, I knew that's what I was going to do when I was in high school, is play and play in college, and wanted to coach and have, you know, and then obviously, you know, Jenny was a big part of it through all of this, and trying to raise two girls and bringing them to all the games and letting me bring them to the practices. And, you know, the girls, and I'm sure they can remember, you know, the players really took them in and treated them great. And they still remember, you know, seeing the girls. I think was it Casey or Allie? Casey saw Missy at the airport once. Years and years later, you know, and yelled out to her or something. And so, I mean, it was, but, you know, I think that me being involved helped my girls be involved, and then they were very, very good athletes when they were going through high school. So, you know, it's just been a part of our lives for a long time. I can remember the conversation I was having with Jenny. I think it was Allie's 7th grade year. So their first, really for Northwood, that's their first. We have a black swish league for 5th and 6th grade, but we only play Northwood. Girls play Northwood. So this is the first time they play other schools, and it was her first year. And I called to see how she was doing because I was missing a game because we had practice. And Jenny goes, "Oh my gosh, I wish you were here. She's having a great game." And it's like, my gosh, I don't want to. I'm missing all of her stuff, you know, coaching, and I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to miss her playing anymore. And I knew my younger one was coming up as well, and I had coached them both when they were younger. And it was at that moment, that exact moment, they were playing Concord. I can even remember who they were playing, and ironically, my alma mater. And so at that, I don't know if I went home and talked to Jenny about it or not, but I knew that's when I made my decision that was my last year. So, I mean, we were, the junior high league starts in January, so I mean, we were probably close to the end of the season, you know, maybe within 4 or 5 games left, and then the tournament. And I was done. I knew I was going to be done because I was not going to miss my daughters playing, which I would have, being at Triton, coaching. It was, I don't know if I don't think we went to any games that year. Maybe one. One, because I knew it would be hard. 2, I didn't think it was fair for, you know, to the other coach that took over. You know, you don't want some guy hanging around that had been there for 14 years. So we purposely, you know, obviously followed it because I would show up at school the next day and make sure I saw how the girls did, but we just stayed away from the games. Just so, I don't know, I just felt like that was the right thing to do. Well, I'm still coaching,
but
coaching a different sport. Now I'm already starting my 10th year as being an assistant in volleyball, which is ironic because I was terrible at it when I first started with Perry, and I'm sure she would tell you the same thing. And I think part of the reason she agreed to have me as an assistant is because she had coached Jenny when Jenny was in high school. So she knew, at least Jenny knew volleyball and had played college volleyball. So I'm grateful that she gave me the opportunity. And then, so I had a little background when I went into it, and I've learned a lot since. But I just actually this year ran the Black Swish League at Northwood, which is 5th and 6th grade. Yeah. And that was, I hadn't done that for, you know, I helped coach Neff for a while when my daughters were playing, but I hadn't done basketball for a long time, so it was fun getting back into it again.
I'll bet.